So I had the chance to sit down and play Sora for a good long time, and he's really stupid. The good stuff about him is stupid, the bad stuff about him is stupid. He's just a really stupid character in an interesting way, though. His physics are the obvious one. They're really hard to wrap your head around, and I kind of get the feeling that making or breaking how well Sora does depends on how much you can do with those physics, because they allow you to do some stuff like really ridiculously deep edge guards, but the trade-off to that is that his disadvantage state seems just horrific. Not helped at all by that downer. I honestly hate that downer so much. Stall fall aerials are never really my thing to begin with, but I hate how much of a roulette wheel that one seems to be, because obviously Sora is spinning around, so sometimes it protects you from below like those stall and fall sword moves are supposed to do, and sometimes it just seems to get beat out exceptionally easily, so really not super into that one. The only thing I do like about it is the fact that Sora can go incredibly low with it and still survive. I do like that. Also find that the sound design on him does not match the actual power of his moves at all. I was kind of thinking like, oh, back air isn't really that strong, up air isn't really all that strong. But in reality, no, those moves are ridiculous. It's literally just the fact that it's using what I'm assuming is Kingdom Hearts sound design for his impact noises. His up B too, he does this really nice magical Disney boy rise into the air, right? And then he just straight up murders you from it. I really like the concept of his multi-hit moves, his neutral air, his forward air, his jab, his forward tilt, all being kind of variants of the Kingdom Hearts classic combo. And I like the fact that there can be variants between single hits and multi-hit versions, but I do have to say a big issue I'm having with them is starting up the second hit of the combo, even if I just wanted to use the first one, then shift into a different move. Like, for example, if I'm going for forward air, but I whiff the first hit of forward air, and I decide to fall back down and try and pursue with a back air instead because they ended up on the other side of me, the way Ultimate's inputs work, that still usually ends up being the second hit of forward air, even if you're pointing the stick in the opposite direction. As long as you're close enough to the beginning of the forward air animation, it still reads it as a forward air input. His multi-hit moves also just seem to have some real consistency issues in general. That refers to the combo moves, and it also really refers to up B. I swear to God, I've had way more people pop out of that than I've ever had pop out of Link. But I'm saying this all as someone who just decided to basically pop online and play some funnies after a few minutes in training mode. You are not watching a highly sophisticated, highly studied Sora, obviously, on your screen right now, and I'm sure as people practice more how to sort of pursue where their opponents are launched, people will tend to pop out of those moves less. And despite their issues, they still are a really interesting concept to design a character around, and people are discovering a lot of really broken things you can potentially do with them. The tradition of the day one Twitter combos is a long one at this point, and I have no idea how many of these are actually going to stick around, but I kind of get the feeling that if Sora turns out to be a good character, it's going to be more on the backs of this than thinking of him as like Floaty or Lucina. Sakurai himself described Sora as a fairly bare-bones, straightforward character, but in reality I'm not so sure that's enough to cut it, because physics are just really awkward and he's also very slow on the ground. So if you're treating him as just a fundamental sword fighter, he's got a lot of flaws with him, but again, there's potential for some just ridiculous setup, so we'll sort of have to see how that develops over time, and his edge guarding is obviously a highlight of the character no matter what. I have to say, Side B ended up being nowhere near as good as expected. The fact that you can only link into it out of up B immediately and there's no way to cancel it or pursue out of it, much less safe on shield than it looked like it initially might be, which is probably not a bad thing if we're being honest, considering how much I'm already seeing that move being spammed online. But a move that turned out way better than I expected it to be is his neutral special. It turns out that all three of those spells actually have a lot of genuinely really interesting use. His dash attack too. Sora has one of the absolute best dash attacks in the game randomly, and then his down smash has also kind of become an notorious move. It is technically punishable, but it's much harder to punish than it looks like it should be, and it also does the same thing as like K-Rool or Incineroar, where it lifts you into the air. And sword fighters don't generally have particularly noteworthy smash attacks, but that one is actually looking like it's going to have a lot of use. Overall, I don't know what to tell you. Sora is stupid, and how much he develops in the metagame will largely depend on how much that good stupid comes out. He's always going to have some pretty significant weaknesses, I think, but he's also got the potential for some extreme cheese, and we're having players like MKLeo say that Sora is at least high tier, and I gotta say, I don't always necessarily pay that much attention to top player opinions about character viability, because you frequently have multiple top players saying completely different things about the same character, so they can't always be right. Their opinions tend to be more informed, but they're still opinions like anyone else's. But MKLeo, he tends to be pretty solid on his predictions, so that's going to be interesting to see. I really hope we do see Sora get adopted, because his playstyle is really interesting, and based on how many people we're seeing excited for him, it looks like that might actually be the case, provided he turns out to be a reasonably viable character. Am I going to be one of the ones picking him up? It seems a bit unlikely if I'm gonna be honest. I do like the way he plays, but he's just so different from my other characters that it would take a lot of time to pound that feel into my head, and it's time that I don't necessarily have, but he is definitely one of the DLC characters I enjoy more alongside Byleth and Terry. I'm actually also interested in giving Jigglypuff and Doc another chance after the patch. Both those characters have some stupid stuff now. Alright, thanks for watching this quick update everyone, and let me know your thoughts on Sora. Liking and commenting on a video helps it in YouTube's algorithm, so if you think it deserves it, much appreciated. There's a DLC character revealed tier list above, Ultimate's most overrated moves on my main channel below, and patrons, YouTube members, and Twitch subscribers get stuff like early videos and access to my Discord server. Later, people!